Perfect. Money hits your account in 5 hours.
What? The whole world thinks we're engaged?
This wasn't in the contract, but you're testing me.
Emily Bennett was screwed. There was simply no other word that accurately described the devastating financial crater she found herself standing in on that freezing, gray November morning in Manhattan. $2 million in debt. $2 million that metastasized like a malignant tumor every single month, fed by predatory compound interest rates that should have been illegal. $2 million she would never, ever manage to pay off working honestly as a freelance journalist in a media landscape that had been scorched to the ground, where content mills paid fractions of a penny per word, and dignity was an obsolete currency. The irony hurt more than the glaring red numbers on her MacBook screen. The story that had dismantled her life had been, unequivocally, the best work she had ever produced. 6 months of meticulous, obsessive investigation exposing a massive corruption scheme, a sitting U.S. senator funneling federal healthcare grants meant for veteran hospitals into offshore accounts in the Caymans, while men who served their country died waiting for basic dialysis machines. Irrefutable proof. Verified whistleblowers. Every single comma triple-checked by legal experts. Emily had published with the burning conviction of someone doing real journalism. The kind that topples regimes and changes societies. The criminals weren't arrested, but Emily was sued. Defamation, libel, tortious interference, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The senator's white shoe law firm didn't just sue her. They buried her under a strategic strategic lawsuit against public participation. They destroyed her in court with procedural technicalities that twisted the truth until it looked like a crime. She lost everything. Her 401k, her savings, her reputation. She was ordered to pay massive settlements for damaging the reputation of a man whose reputation should have been in the gutter, but was heavily armored by layers of old money and political influence. $2 million she didn't have. 29 years old, Columbia educated, and her life was effectively over because she tried to do the right thing. Emily slammed her laptop shut, physically pushing away the suffocating reality. She had work tonight, covering a black tie charity gala at the Plaza Hotel, where billionaires donated tax-deductible crumbs while sipping champagne that cost $1,000 a bottle. Normally, she would have refused such a hypocritical assignment on principle, but a freelancer drowning in debt didn't have the luxury of choosing her beats. An online gossip rag, a clickbait site she used to make fun of in college, would pay her $300 for the write-up. It was a ridiculous, insulting sum, but necessary when you're keeping your head above water by sheer will alone. She dressed in clothes from her before life, a simple black sheath dress that conveniently disguised how much weight she'd lost from stress, heels that pinched her toes but gave her a professional silhouette, light makeup to conceal the dark circles carved by sleepless nights spent calculating impossible math equations, where the result was always bankruptcy. The reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a woman far too exhausted for her age. Hazel eyes that had seen heavy things, shoulders curved under an invisible crushing weight, but still dignified, still standing, still fighting. Dignity was the only asset remaining when money and reputation had been stripped away. The Uber, a luxury she couldn't afford but absolutely needed to maintain appearances, dropped her in front of the Plaza on Fifth Avenue. The imposing French Renaissance chateau-style structure screamed obscene, historic wealth. Emily flashed her press credentials, ignored the condescending look from a security guard who was silently judging her off-the-rack trench coat, and walked in. The grand ballroom was exactly as she expected. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars hanging from the gold-leafed ceiling. Floral arrangements that likely cost more than a mortgage in Ohio and would wilt in 3 days. Women in vintage Versace and custom Chanel, men in Savile Row tuxedos checking Patek Philippe watches worth more than most American homes. Everyone pretending that a $100,000 donation, pocket change to them, made them morally superior to the common man. Emily felt a familiar wave of nausea. This was obscene, morally repugnant, but it was a paycheck. She was scanning the room, looking for an interesting angle for her piece, maybe focusing on the hypocrisy of the menu, when she felt a masculine presence approaching her blind side, with an urgency that made the air around her vibrate. You. The voice was deep, authoritative, laced with an exotic, dangerous accent that hinted at sand and steel. It was the voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed without question, instantly. Emily turned, and the world seemed to stutter and stop. The man was devastating. 6'5" of pure, unadulterated masculinity that his impeccable Tom Ford tuxedo barely managed to contain. Shoulders absurdly broad. A chest that looked solid and muscular beneath the starch of his shirt. He held the posture of an apex predator always on high alert. His face was carved in hard, unforgiving lines, a strong jaw shadowed by a perfect beard, an aristocratic nose, full lips pressed into a tense, thin line. But it was the eyes that stole the breath from her lungs. Black like crude oil. So dark the pupils merged with the irises, creating an infinite abyss. Eyes that were studying her with a laser-focus intensity that fired off contradictory alerts of extreme danger and magnetic attraction in every nerve ending. "Me?" Emily managed to say, her voice sounding weaker than she intended. The man glanced behind him quickly, scanning the crowd, then turned those impossible eyes back to her with growing urgency. "You're a journalist?" He pointed to the press pass dangling around her neck. "I am..." "Why?" He took a deep breath, a movement that made his broad chest rise and fall visibly, and said the most absurd sequence of words she had ever heard in her life. $3 million for 5 hours of pretending to be my girlfriend. Yes or no?" Emily blinked. She blinked again. She waited for him to laugh or for a hidden camera crew to jump out. His eyes remained desperately, terrifyingly serious. "I'm sorry." "What?" He looked behind him again, nervous now. And when he turned back, there was panic poorly disguised behind his stoic mask. "I don't have time for explanations. I need a girlfriend for this gala. The model I hired canceled 2 hours ago. There are billionaire investors here tonight closing a $10 billion merger. They are old-fashioned. They only negotiate with men from stable family backgrounds. If I show up alone again looking like a playboy, I lose everything. You look intelligent. You look reliable. 3 million wired to your account today. 5 hours pretending you love me. Then we never see each other again." It was too absurd to be real. It had to be a prank. But then he pulled out his sleek black smartphone, opened a banking app, and shoved the screen in her face. Balance: $847,392, $441.23, $847 million. Liquid. The room spun slightly. "Who the hell are you?" she whispered. "Jalil Al-Mansour, Sheikh, heir to an emirate in the Persian Gulf. CEO of a global oil and technology conglomerate, and completely desperate right now. Sheikh, Arab royalty, billions, offering her $3 million. Emily knew she should refuse. She was a journalist with integrity, not a paid actress, not an escort. But then her brain processed the math. $3 million would pay off her debts in full, every cent. There would be nearly $1 million left over to start her life from scratch. It meant freedom after 2 years of drowning in quicksand. 5 hours, 300 minutes, 18,000 seconds of pretending. Why me? Jalil studied her with an intensity that did something strange to the pit of her stomach. Because you have the eyes of someone who has survived storms and is still standing. You have the posture of someone who doesn't bow. When I look at you, I don't see a desperate woman. I see someone strong enough to fake it for 5 hours and walk away without drama. The words hit deep. He saw her. He really saw through the facade she presented to the world. And 3 million would solve everything. Emily took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of expensive perfume and old money. She thought about the debts growing monthly, the years of paying the unpayable. Yes, I accept. Intense relief washed over his dark eyes, softening them for a fraction of a second. You won't regret it. I promise to make it easy. He tapped his phone furiously, then showed her the screen again. Transfer pending, $3,000. Recipient, Emily Bennett. You're routing an account number, now. Emily recited them, her voice trembling slightly as she gave the keys to her financial ruin to a stranger. Jalil confirmed the input. Done. The money clears in less than an hour. Now come with me. We have 90 minutes to transform you. He took her hand, a touch that burned like a raw electric shock, and guided her firmly toward the private elevators. In the tense silence of the ascent, Emily processed the reality. She had just sold 5 hours of her life for $3 million. She had agreed to lie for money. She had become exactly what she had always judged. But debts were real, and $3 million was freedom. She watched Jalil in the elevator's mirrored reflection. His strong profile, tense jaw, eyes fixed on the floor numbers climbing higher. She was about to find out if this was the best or the worst decision of her entire life. The elevator dinged softly, opening directly into a private foyer. A set of double mahogany doors waited at the end of the corridor. The penthouse suite. Jalil swiped a keycard, unlocking the doors to reveal a space larger than the entire floor of the apartment building Emily lived in back in Queens. The living room featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, Italian leather sofas that looked like they had never been sat on, and a grand piano. A team of 5 people was waiting. 3 women, 2 men, all dressed in severe black, radiating professional urgency. 90 minutes, Jalil said to the oldest woman in the group, an elegant, formidable lady in her 60s with silver hair pulled back in a tight, severe bun. She had the posture of a retired ballerina and the eyes of a hawk. She needs to be perfect. She needs to be convincing as the girlfriend of a billionaire Sheikh. The woman, Henrietta, one of New York's most exclusive personal stylists, studied Emily clinically, walking a slow circle around her. Excellent natural beauty. Good bone structure. The pale skin contrasts beautifully with your highness's complexion. The hair needs serious work. The clothes... She paused, lifting a sleeve of Emily's trench coat with 2 fingers. We discard completely. Emily flushed, instinctual defensiveness flaring up. This coat cost... It doesn't matter. Henrietta interrupted, her voice gentle but brooking no argument. Tonight, you are not a freelance journalist. Tonight, you are the woman who captured the heart of a man worth billions. Every thread you wear must communicate that power. Jalil stepped closer. Too close. Emily smelled his cologne again, a heady mix of sandalwood, oud, and expensive spices that made the room feel smaller. Henrietta is the best in the city. Trust her. His black eyes met hers, hypnotic and unreadable. Emily nodded silently. Okay. Great. Henrietta clapped her hands once. Gentlemen, out. Your Highness, return in 80 minutes. Jalil hesitated, looking at Emily as if he wanted to say something else, but he simply nodded and walked out the door. What followed was a whirlwind of 90 unforgettable minutes. It wasn't just a shower. It was a full restoration project. Aromatic oils, professional exfoliation that scrubbed away the grit of the subway, deep hydration that left her skin feeling like silk. Her hair was washed with products that smelled like vanilla and wealth, trimmed with surgical precision and blow-dried into perfect glossy Hollywood waves that cascaded over her shoulders. The makeup was art. Foundation that unified her complexion without looking like a mask. Subtle contouring that made her cheekbones pop. Smoky eyeshadow in earthy bronze tones that made her hazel eyes look huge and luminous. Mascara that lengthened her lashes until they brushed her brows. A nude pink lipstick that left her lips looking full and just kissed. Then came the clothes. Henrietta brought out 3 garment bags containing designer gowns, pieces Emily had only ever seen in the pages of Vogue or on the Met Gala red carpet. Henrietta didn't ask. She simply unzipped the center bag. Red, Henrietta declared. Power, passion, visibility. It was Elisab, red silk that flowed like liquid fire. A deep V-neckline that was elegant rather than tawdry, showing off her collarbones. The cut hugged every curve of her body. Celebrating femininity she usually hid under oversized sweaters. It was floor-length with a discreet side slit that only revealed leg when she moved. The back was completely bare, save for thin straps crossing over her shoulder blades like geometric art. Jewelry was last. A diamond necklace and matching drop earrings that Henrietta mentioned casually were worth approximately $2 million, as if she were talking about the price of a latte. When everything was ready, Henrietta turned Emily toward the full-length gilded mirror. Emily didn't recognize the reflection staring back at her. The woman in the mirror was stunning. Not just pretty in a girl next door way. She was sophistication breathing class. Beauty whispering absolute confidence. It was a version of Emily that could easily stand beside a billionaire Sheikh and not just survive, but thrive. Perfect, Henrietta said, looking satisfied for the first time. Now, posture. Shoulders back, chin up. Smile with your eyes, not just your mouth. Touch His Highness whenever possible. A hand on the arm, fingers interlaced, a brush of the shoulder. These are the gestures of intimacy that couples do without thinking. You must think about them constantly until they look natural. Emily swallowed hard. She could do this. 5 hours. Just acting. The double doors opened. Jalil entered. He had changed into a fresh tuxedo. A bespoke masterpiece with a perfect bow tie and gold cufflinks. His presence filled the room, sucking out the oxygen. He stopped mid-step when he saw her. He froze completely. His black eyes scanned her, traveling from the hem of the red silk up to her eyes in a slow, deliberate appraisal that made every nerve in Emily's body fire at once. "Perfect," he said, his voice raspy, lower than it had been before. Absolutely perfect. Something in the way he said it, as if he were seeing the woman, not just the transformation, made a flush of warmth spread through Emily's chest. "Thank you." Jalil approached slowly until he was standing inches from her. The heat radiating from him was palpable. "There is one thing we forgot." "What?" He reached into his tuxedo pocket and pulled out a blue velvet box. He snapped it open to reveal a diamond ring so large Emily involuntarily held her breath. It was a Harry Winston emerald-cut diamond, flanked by baguettes, shining under the chandelier lights. A Sheikh's serious girlfriend wears his gift. He took her left hand, his touch gentle but firm, and slid the ring onto her ring finger. It fit perfectly. "How did you know my ring size?" Jalil smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him, and it was absolutely devastating. It transformed his harsh face into something breathtaking. "I'm good at assessing details." They stood there for a beat, hands touching, bodies close, something electric vibrating in the air between them. Then Jalil stepped back, re-establishing the professional distance. "Let's go. I need to brief you on our history in the car." In the car ride to the gala, a Mercedes Maybach with an interior of cream leather that smelled like new money. Jalil briefed her quickly, his tone businesslike, but his eyes occasionally darting to her lips. "We met 6 months ago at an art auction at Sotheby's in London. You were covering it for a culture blog. I bought a piece you had admired in your article, an original Monet, Water Lilies, and had it delivered to your hotel with a note, 'For the woman with eyes that see beauty where others see price tags.' You were furious. You tried to return it, claiming journalists don't accept gifts from sources. I found your integrity fascinating. I insisted on dinner to discuss art as a compromise. You accepted only to convince me to take the painting back." He paused, checking if she was following. "At dinner, we talked for 6 hours, about everything. Art, politics, social injustice, philosophy. We fell in love despite our different worlds. The relationship has been secret because you wanted privacy to protect your work. Today, we decided to go public." Emily memorized every detail, her heart racing. The story was too beautiful, too romantic. It was the kind of meet-cute she secretly wished was true, the kind that didn't happen in real life. "Why Monet?" she asked quietly. Jalil looked at her with a strange expression, softer than before. "You don't seem like the type who likes the obvious. Monet is classic, but he has layers. The more you look, the more you see hidden beneath the surface." It seemed appropriate. He had thought that much about which artist would suit her, even for a lie. It did something dangerous to Emily's chest. "And what do I say when they ask what I love about you?" Jalil was silent for a moment, watching the city lights blur past the tinted windows. Then he answered quietly, "Say you love how I see the world differently despite my privilege, how I question senseless traditions, how I use my power to create change instead of just hoarding wealth, and how I make you laugh even when you're determined to stay serious." It was so specific, so genuine, that Emily had to remind herself it was a script. "And you? What do you say you love about me?" Jalil turned, facing her directly, his black eyes piercing through the dim light of the car. "I say I love your courage to face corrupt systems, even knowing you might lose everything. Your integrity that refuses to bow when it would be easier to break. Your sharp intelligence that feels no need to prove itself to anyone. And how your eyes shine when you talk about things that matter." A heavy silence filled the car. Because it didn't sound like a prepared lie. It sounded like a truth he had seen in her after only knowing her for an hour. And that was dangerous. Too dangerous. The car slowed to a halt at the entrance of the Plaza. The paparazzi were waiting in droves, flashes exploding like strobe lights, cameras pointing like weapons, voices shouting names. "Ready?" Jalil asked, his hand hovering over the door handle. No, definitely not, but she nodded. "Ready." Jalil got out, buttoned his jacket, walked around the car, and opened her door personally, a gesture that made the photographers go wild. When Emily placed her hand in his to exit, Jalil interlaced their fingers possessively, pulling her close with a natural familiarity that shocked her. He whispered in her ear, his voice too low for the microphones, but loud enough to send a shiver down her spine. "Just follow my lead. I'll handle everything." They walked through the storm of flashes and shouted questions. "Sheikh Jalil, who is she? Is it serious? Is there a wedding coming? Look at the ring." Jalil ignored them all, keeping Emily tucked against his side, his hand resting on the small of her back, his palm burning through the fine red silk. Inside the ballroom, the transformation was complete. Jalil navigated the crowded space with natural confidence, introducing Emily to titans of industry as "my Emily," with genuine pride. He maintained constant physical contact, making it impossible for anyone to question whether they were a real couple. A hand on her waist, fingers interlaced while holding champagne flutes. A kiss on the top of her head while talking to a CEO. Seemingly intimate whispers. "The man in the blue suit is James Chen. I need to close the deal with him tonight." That to anyone watching looked like words of love. And the chemistry was explosive, genuine, impossible to fake. Conversations flowed naturally. They debated art and politics with the guests. Her laughter was real when he told self-deprecating stories about his time at boarding school in Switzerland. And then came the waltz. The orchestra swelled. Jalil led her to the floor. His body was solid and warm against hers, one hand firmly on her waist, the other clasping hers. Emily realized with frightening clarity that she was in trouble. Danger of forgetting this was theater. Danger of believing that looking into his eyes meant more than a performance. "You dance well," Jalil murmured, spinning them effortlessly. "Cotillion classes in Ohio," she quipped, breathless. "My mom thought every lady should know how to waltz just in case a prince asked." Wise mother. They danced in silence for a moment, and Emily felt her heart beating too fast against his chest. "The investors like me," she whispered. "They adore you. Chen told me you are refreshingly authentic." Emily laughed humorlessly. "Ironic, considering I'm a paid fraud." Jalil pulled her closer, a sudden movement that pressed their bodies completely together from chest to knee. "You aren't a fraud, Emily. You are exactly who you say you are. You're just wearing a more expensive dress for a few hours." His eyes were too intense, too focused on her mouth, making it impossible to breathe properly. "Jalil." "They are watching," he murmured, his gaze dropping to her lips. "We need to sell the idea that we are a real couple." And then he kissed her. Right there, in the middle of the dance floor, in front of 200 of New York's elite, dozens of cameras capturing the moment. It wasn't a polite, chaste kiss. It was a kiss that stole her breath and ignited every nerve ending in her body. Jalil kissed her like a man dying of thirst, and she was the only water in the desert, urgent, desperate, and devastatingly too real to be fake. His hand on her waist tightened, pulling her impossibly closer. His other hand slid up her neck to cup her face, his thumb stroking her cheekbone with a gentleness that contrasted with the intensity of his mouth. His tongue traced her lower lip, asking for an entrance Emily granted without thinking. Losing herself completely in the sensation of being kissed, as if she were the only woman existing in the universe. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, hearts racing in sync, Jalil rested his forehead against hers, closing his eyes for a second. "Was that convincing?" he whispered hoarsely. Emily couldn't answer, because the truth was terrifying. The kiss had been too convincing, and she had completely forgotten, for a few glorious seconds, that she was pretending. After the dance and the kiss that had lasted a dangerously long time, Jalil guided Emily toward the hotel's terrace, a semi-private outdoor space overlooking 58th Street. It was elaborately decorated with fairy lights woven through topiaries and stone fountains that masked the city traffic with the soothing sound of running water. They found a spot on a marble bench beneath a trellis of winter jasmine, far enough from the main doors to have real privacy, but technically still within the event's perimeter. Emily took a deep breath of the crisp November air, trying to calm a heart that had been beating irregularly since their lips touched. "You are doing incredibly well," Jalil broke the loaded silence that had formed between them. "James Chen just verbally confirmed he wants to move forward with the full merger. 3 other major investors asked my team for formal meetings next week. The strategy is working beyond my expectations." Emily knew she should be relieved. She should be happy that this elaborate farce was working exactly as planned, meaning she could soon go back to her tiny apartment with $3 million and a clean slate. But all she felt was a strange, uncomfortable hollowness expanding in her chest. "Why do you really need to look like you have a stable girlfriend to close business deals?" Emily heard herself asking, knowing it was crossing the line. "It's 2024 in New York City. It feels archaic, ridiculously sexist." Jalil sighed, a heavy sound that carried the weight of 1,000 frustrations. He leaned back, looking up at the light-polluted sky. Because the traditional investors from the Gulf, especially the older generation who control the sovereign wealth funds, operate on a mindset that hasn't changed in centuries. They genuinely believe a single man at 34 is emotionally unstable or unreliable for long-term commitments. The old families that control trillions in oil money have a simple logic. Marriage and heirs are verifiable signs of responsibility. A man who doesn't marry by his mid-30s is a wild card, a risk. Why not just get married for real then? The words slipped out before Emily could filter her curiosity. If it's that important for the bottom line? Jalil didn't seem offended by the directness. He turned his head to look at her, his expression guarded. "Because every marriage I have seen growing up, and when I say every, I mean 100%, has been a cold political transaction or a strategic financial alliance. My parents despise each other, but stay married for appearances. My brothers married women chosen by advisors based on their last names. I saw genuine love exactly 0 times in 34 years. So, I decided very early on that if I can't have something real, something that actually matters, I would rather have nothing than live a suffocating lie for 40 years. The raw, vulnerable honesty in his deep voice made something tighten painfully in Emily's chest. She recognized that loneliness. It was the specific isolation of being surrounded by people but fundamentally unseen. That is, Emily searched for the right word. Profoundly sad. Jalil turned his body to face her fully, those black eyes stripping away her defenses. "And you, Emily Bennett, why is a brilliant, Ivy League-educated journalist accepting $3 million to fake a romance instead of publishing investigative pieces that expose the corrupt?" The question hit like a straight jab to the gut. It touched the wound that was still bleeding. Emily took a breath, deciding between a polite lie and the raw truth. She chose the truth. He had shared his vulnerability. It only seemed fair to return it. "Because I tried to change the world, and the world crushed me," she said, her voice bitter but steady. "I published that investigation. I had the receipts. I proved that Senator was stealing from dying veterans. And instead of justice, I got sued into oblivion. I lost my savings, my reputation, my ability to get hired. I owe $2 million that I can't pay. Your $3 million literally saves my life. It buys me a future." Jalil went silent, processing the injustice of it. Then he reached out, taking her hand again. He interlaced his long fingers with hers, not for show this time, but in a gesture of genuine human connection. I am deeply sorry that integrity is punished while corruption is rewarded, he said quietly. It's a broken system, she whispered, fighting back tears she refused to shed. It doesn't have to be broken forever, Jalil replied with a conviction she didn't expect from a billionaire. People like you who refuse to bow even when they are crushed, you eventually change systems. It just takes a frustratingly long time. They sat there in companionable silence for a moment that should have been awkward between strangers, but felt strangely like coming home. You know what's ironically sad? Emily said, breaking the quiet. The story you invented for the press, the Monet, the 6-hour conversation about philosophy. I genuinely wished it were true. It sounds infinitely better than we met when he paid me $3 million to save his merger. Jalil laughed softly, a warm sound that seemed to chase away the chill of the New York night. Who says it can't eventually become real in a way? He challenged, a half smile playing on his lips. Technically, you did cover an event where we met. We have had deep conversations about the world and injustice. I am fascinated by you. All the essential elements are present. The details about the auction and the painting. Consider those creative embellishments. Emily looked at him, trying to decipher if he was flirting or acting. His eyes were disturbingly serious. Jalil. I know. I'm sorry. I am definitely crossing professional lines. He stood up fluidly, extending a hand to help her up. We should go back inside before someone notices our prolonged absence and starts speculating about what we're doing in the dark. Emily took his hand and stood, but when she tried to let go, he held on for a second longer than necessary. Just a little longer. We are technically still in a public area, so the performance continues. They walked back toward the ballroom doors, hand in hand. Emily tried desperately to ignore the fact that walking beside him, talking easily about things that mattered, was starting to feel less like a job, and more like something she wished she could keep. What neither of them saw, what they couldn't see because they were too focused on each other, was the paparazzo hidden in the dense decorative shrubbery near the service entrance. He had a high-end camera with a massive telephoto lens. He had captured every moment, the passionate kiss on the dance floor, the intimate conversation on the bench, the way Jalil held her hand like a lifeline, the look in their eyes that screamed love. He was snapping hundreds of photos in rapid bursts, uploading them immediately via a 5G connection to editors hungry for a scoop on the elusive Sheikh, who usually avoided the press like the plague. Emily didn't see the photos being sent. She didn't imagine that in less than 12 hours, her life would be incinerated in a way that $3 million couldn't fix. The 5 hours ended at 2:00 a.m. The last investor left. Jalil declared the mission a resounding success. They returned to the hotel entrance in the same silent Mercedes, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was heavy with unspoken things. Thank you, Jalil said as the valet opened the door. You were absolutely perfect. Beyond expectation. You saved the company. Emily should have felt triumphant. Mission accomplished. Money secured. But she felt empty. It was an experience, she said. Inadequate words for a surreal night. Jalil smiled. A small, private thing. Experience is a diplomatic word for an insane evening. He walked her to the elevator for her temporary room. A standard suite on a lower floor, separate from his penthouse. Sleep well, Emily Bennett. And thank you. Emily went up to her room, kicked off the expensive heels, and collapsed onto the bed still wearing the red Elie Saab gown because she was too exhausted to unzip it. She slept deeply for the first time in months, free from the nightmares of debt collectors. She didn't dream. But she should have dreamed of warnings, because at 7 a.m. on Sunday, her phone on the nightstand started vibrating violently, buzzing against the wood like a drill. Emily groaned, reaching for the phone with eyes still glued shut. Hello? Her voice was raspy with sleep. Emily, oh my God, have you seen the news? You are literally on every homepage on the planet. It was Chloe, her best friend, screaming with a hysterical urgency that jolted Emily awake instantly. What news? Chloe, it's 7 a.m. Look at your phone. Open Instagram. Google your name. You are trending worldwide. Emily's stomach dropped. With trembling hands, she unlocked her phone and opened her browser. The world collapsed. The headline was on TMZ, Page 6, the Daily Mail, Al Jazeera, and the New York Times. Sheikh Jalil Al-Mansour confirms secret romance with American journalist Emily Bennett. Royal wedding imminent. Do you realize the sheer scale of this catastrophe? Emily went to sleep as a normal person and woke up as a future princess in global headlines. Jalil's father, who is dying of cancer, has already given an emotional interview gushing about his future daughter-in-law. If she denies it now, she destroys everything. If she keeps pretending, she has to live a lie for weeks with the entire world watching. Take a moment to comment where you're watching our story from and hit that like button right now. Because if you're sitting there wondering, how on earth is this situation going to be resolved? Let me tell you, it's about to get much more complicated. There were photos, hundreds of them, high resolution, the kiss on the dance floor, an angle that captured perfectly how Jalil held her face, looking like a man consumed by passion. The intimate moment in the garden, Jalil holding her hand, both of them looking deeply into each other's eyes with raw vulnerability. The caption on the Daily Mail read, "Exclusive sources close to the royal Al-Mansour family confirm that Sheikh Jalil, 34, has been secretly courting investigative journalist Emily Bennett, 29, for 6 months. The couple met in London. The royal palace has reportedly already issued a formal blessing for the union, and a lavish wedding is expected within 3 to 6 months." Emily felt physically sick. Chloe. "I have to go." "Emily, you're engaged to a billionaire sheikh and you didn't tell me? How?" "I'm not engaged. I'm not dating him. It was..." She stopped. She couldn't say it. She couldn't admit it was fake without destroying Jalil. I need to call you back." She hung up and immediately dialed the emergency number Jalil had given her. He picked up on the first ring. "Emily." "Jalil, what the hell is happening? Why does the entire internet think I'm marrying you?" There was a heavy, ominous silence on the other end. "I know. I saw it. I woke up to 50 missed calls from the palace." "You saw it? This is a disaster. It says wedding imminent. My career is over. This is fake news on a global scale." "The palace confirmed the relationship officially," Jalil said, his voice sounding strained and tight. The words dropped like a nuclear bomb. "They what?" Jalil let out a breath that sounded like a man defeated. "My father, the Emir. He is terminally ill. Stage 4 cancer. He saw the photos online this morning. He was so deeply moved to finally see me happy and settled that he issued an official statement to the press before consulting me. He approved the match. He said he is eager to meet his future daughter-in-law before he passes." It spread to every news outlet in 30 minutes. "So fix it!" Emily screamed. "Deny it!" "If I deny it publicly now..." Jalil's voice trailed off. "I cause a diplomatic crisis. I humiliate my dying father publicly. And the investors? They will think I am a pathological liar. The $10 billion merger collapses instantly." "So what are you saying?" Emily whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. "Emily," Jalil sounded desperate. "I know this is horrible. I know this violates our deal. But please..." His voice cracked. "Please stay with me. Keep pretending. Just for 1 month. Enough time to close the contracts and for my father. For things to stabilize. Then we break up quietly. We say the distance was too much. No one questions that. 1 month. I will pay you an additional $5 million, Jalil said quickly. $8 million total. Wired today. You will be wealthy for life. $8 million. It was money that would change her existence. Freedom. Safety. But 1 month meant living this lie 24/7. It meant staring into those black eyes every day. It meant resisting a magnetic pull that had almost consumed her in just 5 hours. "Emily, please, I am begging you." She closed her eyes. She had caused this by accepting the first deal. "Okay," she said, her voice hollow. 1 month. But after that, I disappear. Forever. "Thank you," Jalil breathed. "I swear I will make this up to you." She hung up, fell back onto the pillows, and stared at the ceiling. She had just agreed to be the fake fiancée of a billionaire sheikh for 30 days. And somewhere deep inside, a treacherous little voice whispered that the scariest part wasn't the lie. The scariest part was that 1 month might not be long enough. The palace machinery moved with military efficiency. By noon on that chaotic Sunday, Emily was moved from her temporary room to a luxury suite adjacent to Jalil's penthouse, a space larger than most Manhattan apartments, featuring a living room with plush velvet furniture, a master bedroom draped in imported silks, and a terrace overlooking Central Park South. 2 security guards were stationed permanently outside her door. Large men in black suits with earpieces who didn't smile but nodded politely when she passed, a silent reminder that her freedom now had very specific boundaries. Henrietta, the stylist, returned with 15 garment bags. She began unpacking a wardrobe fit for a future princess. Day dresses from Zimmermann, evening gowns from Valentino, casual wear from Ralph Lauren that somehow looked more expensive than Emily's entire life. Then came Patricia, a razor-sharp PR crisis manager who looked like she ate nails for breakfast. She handed Emily an iPad, displaying a color-coded schedule titled Public Engagement Strategy, Weeks 1-4. Monday, dinner at Le Bernardin. Paparazzi will be tipped off about the reservation. Tuesday, casual morning coffee run near Bethesda Fountain, staged candid photos. Wednesday, private tour of the MoMA, official press pool allowed for 10 minutes. Thursday, lunch at Bergdorf Goodman, window seat visibility. Friday, the Met Opera Gala, formal red carpet appearance. Emily stared at the schedule, feeling a familiar claustrophobia tighten around her throat. "This is intense," she said weakly. Patricia offered a smile that was professional but devoid of warmth. "Your Highness wants to ensure the narrative is airtight. The more you are seen together in natural settings, the harder it is for skeptics to question the timeline. We need to sell the 6-month backstory aggressively, Your Highness." The title felt bizarre applied to Jalil, the man she had known for less than 48 hours, but who already occupied a terrifying amount of space in her head. "When do I see him?" Emily asked, trying to sound casual and failing. "To coordinate our stories?" Patricia tapped the iPad. "His Highness requested a completely private dinner with you tonight, 8 p.m. in his suite. No staff, no press, just the 2 of you to align on the narrative." Something strange and hot curled in Emily's stomach. Private dinner, his suite, alone. At 7:55 p.m., Emily stood outside Jalil's double doors wearing a simple but elegant black midi dress Henrietta had selected. Conservative enough for a serious girlfriend, but with a slit that hinted at something more. She took 3 deep breaths before knocking. The door opened. It was Jalil. But not the Jalil from the gala. He was wearing casual clothes for the first time. Charcoal gray wool trousers and a crisp white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, exposing forearms corded with muscle and tanned skin. No tie. The top 2 buttons were undone. He looked devastating. He looked accessible, which made him infinitely more dangerous than the untouchable figure in the tuxedo. "Emily," he said, a small, tired smile softening his face. "Come in, please." His suite was dimly lit. A table by the window was set for 2, illuminated by tapering candles that flickered against the backdrop of the city skyline. The smell of truffle risotto filled the air. "You cook?" Emily asked, genuinely surprised. Jalil laughed, a rich, baritone sound that vibrated in her chest. "God, no. That would be a culinary disaster and a potential fire hazard. I had the hotel's executive chef prepare the menu and leave it in the warmer. But..." He gestured to the table. "I lit the candles myself. Does that count for partial credit?" Emily couldn't help the genuine smile that broke through her anxiety. Partial credit granted. They sat across from each other. For a long time, they just ate in silence, the clink of silverware the only sound against the hum of the city below. It was intimate. Too intimate. "So," Jalil started, pouring a glass of vintage Cabernet into her glass. 1 month. 1 month, Emily echoed, drinking a little faster than she should have. "I am truly sorry it exploded like this," Jalil said, his voice dropping an octave. "The paparazzi should never have had access to the terrace. Security has been fired. I never intended to trap you in a media circus. And now I'm trending on Twitter as the future princess of an oil empire, Emily said, trying to keep the bitterness out of her voice. Jalil sighed, running a hand through his thick, dark hair. Tell me more about the lawsuit, the debt. I want to understand the damage. Emily hesitated. She was used to hiding the shame of her financial ruin. But looking at him, open, listening, without judgment, she found herself talking. She told him everything, the specifics of the slap suit, how the legal fees drained her 401k, how the settlement demanded $2.3 million for emotional damages to a corrupt politician, how the interest piled up every month, making it mathematically impossible to ever be free. When she finished, Jalil looked furious. His jaw was set hard, his hand gripping the wine glass tightly. That is legally sanctioned extortion, he said quietly. You did your job, you told the truth, and the system was weaponized to destroy you. Welcome to America, Emily murmured. Jalil was silent for a moment. He pulled out his phone. What is the exact current balance, including the legal fees and interest? $2,340,000, give or take a few hundred. Jalil tapped on his screen for 10 seconds. Then he slid the phone across the mahogany table toward her. Emily looked down. Wire transfer completed. $2,340,000. Recipient: the law offices of Sterling and Cooper. Settlement escrow. Memo: full and final satisfaction of judgment. Emily Bennett. Emily froze. The world stopped spinning. What? What did you just do? I paid the debt directly to the law firm's escrow account. I had my legal team get the wiring instructions this morning. You are free. As of this second, you owe nothing to anyone. Emily stared at him, her mouth opening and closing. Jalil, no. This is too much. The $8 million for the contract is already... The $8 million is business, he interrupted firmly. That is your salary for the month of work. This, he pointed to the phone, is personal, because no one should be punished for telling the truth. Consider it an investment in a future where brave journalists aren't silenced by corrupt men with expensive lawyers. Tears, hot and fast, pricked Emily's eyes. She tried to blink them back, but one escaped, tracking down her cheek. Why would you do that for me? Jalil stood up. He walked around the table and did something that shattered her. He knelt beside her chair, bringing himself to her eye level. Because last night, in the garden, I saw who you really are. I saw courage, I saw integrity, and I have billions of dollars sitting in accounts doing nothing. If I can use a fraction of it to right a wrong for a woman who deserves better, why wouldn't I? Emily let out a sob she couldn't hold back. I've been drowning for 2 years. Every morning I wake up unable to breathe, and you just fixed it. Then it was worth every penny. He reached out, his large hand cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear. His skin was warm, rough, real. They stayed like that. Him kneeling, her sitting, their faces inches apart. The air in the room changed. It shifted from gratitude to something heavier. Something electric. Emily saw his gaze drop to her lips. She saw his pupils dilate. She should pull away. It was a contract. It was fake. But she didn't. She leaned in. Jalil made a low sound in his throat, a groan of surrender, and closed the distance. This wasn't for the cameras. There was no audience, no investors, no PR team. This was just them. His lips met hers, soft at first, testing the waters. But the moment they touched, the dam broke. Jalil kissed her with a hunger that terrified her. His hand tangled in her hair, tilting her head back, deepening the kiss until she was dizzy with it. It tasted like wine and desperation. It felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. When they finally broke apart, breathless, foreheads resting against each other, Jalil whispered, "That wasn't part of the contract." "I know," Emily breathed. Her eyes closed. "It complicates everything. I know. But I can't bring myself to regret it. Neither can I." Jalil stood up slowly, stepping back as if the physical distance could restore his sanity. He ran a hand over his face, looking shaken. "Emily, this is dangerous. A month of this. It will be torture if every time I look at you I want to do that." Emily stood up too, her legs shaking. "So we don't do it again," she lied. "We keep it professional. Tonight was emotional. The relief about the debt. It was a lapse in judgment." Jalil looked at her, his eyes dark and knowing. "A lapse in judgment," he repeated, unconvinced. "Right." But as she walked back to her suite that night, touching her bruised lips, Emily knew they were both lying. That kiss hadn't been a lapse, it had been a warning. The first week was exactly the torture Jalil had predicted. Monday. Dinner at Le Bernardin. They sat in the center of the room. He held her hand across the white tablecloth. They talked for 3 hours about books, about their childhoods, about fears. Every time he laughed at her jokes, her heart did a traitorous flip. Wednesday. The MoMA. They walked through the galleries. He stood behind her looking at a Pollock, his chest brushing her back, his breath on her neck as he pointed something out for the cameras. The heat radiating from him made her knees weak. Friday. The opera. She wore emerald green. He looked at her like she was the only woman in the galaxy. When they got into the limo afterward, the tension was so thick it felt suffocating. By the 10th day, they were exhausted. Not from the schedule, but from the effort of not touching each other when the cameras were off. They were in the private elevator heading up to the penthouse after a charity gala. The doors closed, sealing them in the mirrored box. Jalil leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes. "That was incredibly difficult," he murmured. "Not kissing you when you look like that in that dress." Emily stood on the opposite side, clutching her clutch bag like a shield. "Don't start, Jalil." He opened his eyes. They were blazing. "I am not starting. I am stating a fact. I am hanging by a thread, Emily." He took one step toward her. "Jalil, the security cameras are disabled in my private elevator," he said, his voice rough. He took another step. He was right in front of her now. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "Tell me you don't want this, and I will walk out those doors and never touch you again." Emily looked up at him. She thought about the contract. She thought about the inevitable end in 20 days. She thought about the heartbreak waiting for her. "I can't," she whispered. Jalil didn't wait. He crashed his mouth onto hers, lifting her up against the mirrored wall, kissing her until the world dissolved into nothing but him. And Emily realized, with a jolt of pure terror, that she wasn't just attracted to him. She was falling in love with a man she was contractually obligated to leave. On the 18th day, the bomb dropped. Emily was in her suite, typing up a personal essay for Vogue that Patricia had ghostwritten for her when her personal cell phone rang. It was an unknown number with a German country code. She picked up without thinking. "Hello? Emily Bennett?" The voice was male, arrogant, and clipped. "Yes, who is this?" "Victor Haas, managing partner at Haas Ventures. We need to have a very urgent conversation about your little performance art piece with Sheikh Al-Mansour." Emily's stomach dropped through the floor. She gripped the phone tighter. "I don't know what you're talking about." Haas laughed, a cold, calculated sound. "Please don't insult my intelligence. I have the bank records, Ms. Bennett. The $3 million wire transfer on the night of the gala, the payment to your law firm. I even have a recording from a disgruntled security guard of you two discussing the terms in the elevator. I have everything." Bile rose in her throat. "What do you want?" "Meet me in the Oak Bar downstairs in 10 minutes. Come alone. Or I email the entire file to the New York Times and Al Jazeera within the hour." He hung up. Emily stood there, shaking violently. Someone knew. Someone had proof. She grabbed her coat and ran down to the lobby. Victor Haas was waiting in a corner booth, a shark in a bespoke Italian suit, sipping a martini. He looked like every corporate villain she had ever investigated. Emily sat down, not bothering with pleasantries. Haas slid a manila envelope across the table. "Copies of the transfers, the audio transcript. It's all very damning. Fraud, is the word the SEC might use if they looked at the merger documents Jalil is signing. What do you want? She repeated. Haas leaned back. I want Jalil to withdraw from the merger with Chen Industries. If he walks away, my firm steps in. I want you to convince him to tank the deal. If the deal goes through on Friday, I release this. He loses his reputation, the merger collapses anyway, and his dying father spends his final days watching his son being branded a liar and a fraud on global television. He'll never do it, Emily whispered. Then you will be the reason for his destruction, Haas smiled thinly. You have until tomorrow noon. Emily grabbed the envelope and ran back to the penthouse. She found Jalil on the terrace, looking at the city. When she told him, showing him the papers, playing the audio file Haas had sent, he didn't explode. He just went very, very quiet. He has us, Jalil said, his voice devoid of emotion. If this comes out, the board will remove me. My father, it would kill him. You have to fight him, Emily said desperately. With what? It's the truth, Emily. We lied. I built a $10 billion deal on a foundation of sand. He looked at her, eyes filled with pain. I deserve to lose the company, but I cannot drag you down with me. If this leaks, you will be painted as a gold digger, a con artist. Your career will be buried forever. I don't care about my career. I do, Jalil shouted, the first time he had raised his voice. I care about you. Emily stared at him. She saw the resolve in his eyes. He was going to tank the deal to protect her from the scandal. He was going to sacrifice his legacy to save her reputation. She couldn't let him do that. I'm going to my room, she said, her voice trembling. I need to think. She went to her suite. She didn't think. She packed. If she wasn't there, if she disappeared and took the blame, Jalil could spin it. He could say she tricked him. That he was a victim of a scam. He could save the merger and his father's pride. She wrote a letter on the hotel stationery. Jalil, I'm leaving. By the time you read this, I'll be on a plane. Haas can't use me against you if I'm gone. Tell the press I scammed you. Tell them I was an actress you hired who went rogue. Blame it all on me. Save the company. Save your father. Thank you for saving me when I was drowning. You are a good man. I love you. Emily. She left the ring on the desk. It sparkled mockingly under the lamp. She took the service elevator, hailed a cab, and gave the driver the destination that felt like a death sentence. JFK, International Terminal. As fast as you can. Jalil found the letter 40 minutes later when she didn't answer her door for dinner. He read it once, twice. The words, I love you, burned into his retinas. Sir? His head of security appeared. Is everything all right? Jalil crumpled the note in his fist. He looked at the ring sitting on the desk. Get the car, Jalil snarled, moving toward the door. Now. Where to, sir? JFK, and call the NYPD. Tell them I need an escort. I don't care what it costs. Traffic on the Van Wyck Expressway was a parking lot. Emily was at the check-in counter for a flight to London. She was numb. She was doing the right thing. The noble thing. So why did it feel like she was dying? Miss, passport please, the agent asked. Emily handed it over. Suddenly a commotion erupted near the entrance of Terminal 4. People were screaming. Camera phones were flashing. Emily! The voice roared over the noise of the terminal. She froze. She turned around. Jalil was running, the billionaire Sheikh. Usually the picture of composed elegance, looked like a madman. His tie was gone. His shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest. He was sprinting past security, ignoring the TSA agents shouting at him, vaulting over a velvet rope. Emily! He saw her. He closed the distance in seconds, grabbing her shoulders, spinning her around. He was panting, sweat glistening on his forehead. You! Do! Not! Leave! He gasped. Jalil, you have to let me go! She cried, tears finally spilling over. Haas will destroy you. You have to blame me. It's the only way to save the merger. Screw the merger! Jalil shouted. The entire terminal had gone silent. Hundreds of travelers were watching. iPhones were recording from every angle. But your father, your legacy. My legacy means nothing if I am miserable. Jalil shook her gently. I spent 34 years doing what was expected. I built the company. I played the game, and I was hollow inside until I walked into that ballroom and saw you. Jalil, everyone is filming, Emily whispered, terrified. He looked around at the sea of phones. Good, he said. Let them film. He turned back to her, his black eyes blazing with intensity. I don't want to be saved without you, Emily. I choose you. I choose you over the 10 billion. I choose you over the reputation. I choose you over everything. You'll lose it all, she sobbed. I gain you, he said, his voice breaking. And you are worth infinitely more than oil. He pulled her face to his and kissed her. It wasn't a Hollywood kiss. It was messy and desperate and wet with tears. It was a kiss that sealed a pact. When he pulled back, he looked directly at a woman holding an iPhone in the front row. Are you streaming this? He asked the stranger. Yeah. TikTok Live, the woman stammered. Good. Jalil looked into the camera lens. Victor Haas, I know you're watching. Go ahead. Release the files. I don't care. I am canceling the merger with Chen Industries myself. Not because I am afraid of you, but because I am done with games. I love this woman, and if being with her costs me $10 billion, then it is the best bargain of my life. He looked back at Emily. Marry me, he said. For real. No contracts, no timelines. Just us. Emily laughed through her tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you idiot. The terminal erupted in applause. 6 months later, the wedding was not quiet. It was held at the Al Mansour Palace in the Gulf. But it was broadcast globally, not because they wanted the attention, but because the world demanded to see the JFK lovers tie the knot. Victor Haas had tried to release the files, but the public reaction to the airport video had been so overwhelming that the board of directors refused to fire Jalil. In fact, stock prices went up. The authenticity premium, analysts called it. Jalil eventually bought out Haas's firm in a hostile takeover. Emily sat in the bridal suite, finishing the final paragraph of her new article. She wasn't writing for a content mill anymore. She had launched her own independent investigative journalism platform, funded by her own money and a very generous angel investor. She typed the headline, From Fake News to True Love. When a hired journalist becomes a real princess, she looked at the ring on her finger, the same one from that first night, now joined by a simple gold wedding band. She typed the final lines. They say you can't buy love. They're right. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, a transaction can buy you just enough time to realize that the person standing across from you isn't acting anymore. Sometimes truth is born from a lie, and sometimes 5 hours of pretending turn into a lifetime of reality. This is our story. Imperfect, complicated, absolutely true, and I wouldn't change a single second. Your Highness? Patricia peeked around the door, smiling genuinely for the first time. It's time. Emily closed her laptop. She stood up, smoothed her dress, and walked out to meet her husband. From a broke journalist accepting $3 million to fake a romance, to a real-life princess marrying for true love, Emily and Jalil proved that even the most transactional and absurd beginnings can lead to the kind of endings that make you believe in impossible plot twists. And today's comment is going to be the very first thing that popped into my head when I finished this story. So, the keyword for today's comment is paparazzi. Yup, that's literally what came to my mind today. Those of you who stay until the very end already know how I am. Anyway, if this entire journey, from that first fake kiss to a real proposal broadcast globally, moved you the way it moved me, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And go ahead and watch this other story appearing on your screen right now. I'll see you there.